Happy birthday, Ben.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it is my birthday today. We're actually going to flip the switch a little bit today. So for the last few months, if you've been watching, reading, listening, you've probably seen that we've been talking a lot about sellers, you should do this, and buyers, you should do this, but we're flipping the onus back onto us, realtors, as
the team.
That's it. Buyers and sellers, you are important, but we as realtors are half of the equation as well. And so this podcast, video, blog, however you're tuning in, is aptly named Realtors Be Better, because in this market we need to be better. Now, first and foremost, we're not hammering down on anyone saying that anyone's done something wrong or we're all doing something wrong right now. We're just saying that in this market, in order to achieve success, you as a realtor need to be better and need to be up in your game. You can't just expect your sellers and buyers to change their method of thinking without you reciprocating that and doing that yourself as well. What do you think, Jay?
That's 100% the case these days, and I think we really need to come down in the form of education, as we're the ones on the front lines. The buyers and sellers are out, they work, they're not, even though they may be monitoring the market, they're not seeing it, hopefully to the, not hopefully for the same degree, but hopefully, hopefully they're not. Hopefully their agent is much more in depth with the market than they are, as that's what the justification is for hiring someone, of course. But the buyers and sellers are busy with their own lives, and they hire us to come in and educate them and paint a proper picture of what today's market looks like in their micro section of the market, no matter what kind of piece of real estate they have. And it all comes back to education, and especially now that's the most important thing, is the agents, selecting an agent that is going to educate you properly on where you need to be if you're a buyer or a seller.
Yeah, I mean, over the past few years, and to be honest, there's a lot of agents who have never had to fight in this kind of market before, so I think it can be a daunting thing to have that kind of educational conversation with your client, because over the last few years, the only real education there was your property, you bought it for this, and it's now worth this, and it's a constant increase in the market, so it's very easy to do. Now it's more of a tough conversation, but still just as needed of, look, this is what it was in the peak, yes, but now this is what the market is willing to pay, and that can sometimes be hundreds of thousands below what their belief of where the market is at. And so now the onus is really on us as agents to have those conversations, whether our client is extremely argumentative, doesn't want to hear it and fights back, all the way through to someone who's completely understanding and relies on you entirely for your advice. Like, regardless of what that person shows, emotional wise or anything, is we need to do our job as realtors by having those hard conversations. So we need to be saying, you want this price, but the market figures and stats, again educating them, are saying that the market value for your place is worth this rate. And I mean, they may choose to take your advice on board, and that's a whole other conversation, but at least you've then given them all of the information to make the correct assumption, or to move forward in a way that they see fit with all of the information at hand. If they decide then, no, I want to list my place for 1.2 million and it's only worth 900,000, that's their prerogative and their decision. But at least that way, when things don't start going their way, you can fall back and say, well, as per our discussion, this is what the market value was for your property, this is why things aren't coming through. And it's a scary topic, I think, for some realtors, but
for sure. And to that last point, if you're having that real conversation with the client, the seller, for example, and they're looking at the peak market pricing, which we're seeing a lot of still, them wanting to list at those numbers to try, and that's fine, they can do whatever they want. Your example last week, we put the buyer, put an offer in representing a buyer, and the cover page was a complete breakdown of why we're offering these numbers. So all the facts, the market facts, the percentage variance from when the market was at this asking price they're at now and where it is now and why, and the total justification. So had you, the listing agent, had the conversation, which would have reflected the numbers that we're now putting in front of you already, and the seller just said, I don't care, I want to list at this, that's fine. It's up to the seller to list at whatever they want. But this offer now is going to reinforce that conversation that you had initially. So that's going to be the second time that Mr. or Mrs. Seller has now heard this side of the market and these number ranges. And that's going to put further clarification to that seller, hopefully, that the market actually is down here, not up there anymore. And if they don't want to sell in this range, then fair enough. Maybe that was the last step to say, okay, this isn't worth it. Let's either reduce or wait. But if that clarification has been given up front, when people are making offers now, they're bringing that clarification with them, at least we are, to justify where we are. Ben will speak to that in a minute on the buyer side and where you need to be offering, not just low because it's a buyer's market, but it's going to further reinforce the real conversation you had with them. It'll make everyone's job and life easier, starting with the buyer itself.
Yeah, and again, going back to the education standpoint on the buying side of things, because all of your clients are, they're lawyers, they're doctors, they're factory workers, they're restaurant workers, whatever it may be, they're all busy. And there's so much on the market to pick from, which is great right now if you're a buyer. However, it's time to step up and really get to know your buyers, really get to know what they're looking for as well, because there's so much to choose from. But you as an agent should be narrowing that down for them so that you're not taking them here, there, and everywhere that doesn't fit their needs. You want to be able to, are these buildings good buildings to purchase into? Does this fit my client's needs for X, Y, and Z? This is a good buy because of this. Again, this is where the education comes in. And then when it comes to the offering side of things as well, is educating them on where the market is so that you can make a justified offer. I mean, going into somewhere and just saying, I just want to offer 100 grand less than asking price because the market's down is not gonna, it's not a win-win situation for both. And if anything, it's probably just gonna irritate the selling agent and the seller. You want to be able to go in with your figures and say to your clients, okay, if you want to try this, I am your agent and representing you, so we will do that. However, in my opinion, based on our professional knowledge, this is where the offer should start at, this is why, and this is why we should be going in here. Again, justifying it. So they can choose to offer that price that they want to offer, but if it comes back and they don't get the result they're after, you've at least done your due diligence by telling them where the market is, what needs to happen and why it needs to happen like that. Otherwise, the reality of it is, anyone else who doesn't do their job, what happens to them?
Of course, they get passed on and they're gone.
Exactly.
But to that point as well, if you're working with the buyer and the buyer is going in, we've had a number of offers come back in the last week with no counters back saying, thanks for your justification, but my seller's now insulted.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a reflection of you, the listing agent, have not had the real conversation with your seller. This is the first time they've seen these numbers. This is the first time they've had real perspective on the market, and they don't like it. Now they're throwing this offer to the floor, which they're very hard to come by these days.
And who can really blame them, right? If the conversation has not been had with them, who can really blame them as a seller, because they don't know what to expect, because they haven't had that conversation, which is the biggest problem, because you've got something that's very coveted these days, which is an offer, a justified offer, not an offer of, well, it's a buyer's market, so I'm going to offer way down there because I assume it's going to be less in a few months, so I want that price. But if you have a justified offer come to you, that's pretty hard to come by these days. Yeah.
So when we get that response, it's exactly that this is the first time they've seen these numbers, and the selling agents haven't done their job, which is just a disservice to that seller because they're getting hit from left field now. They haven't had this conversation already, and it's kind of wasting the seller's time, that agent's time, the buyer's offer, and
And the reality of it is it is a tougher market for your clients out there right now. So now is the time to look at this as an opportunity to stand out for your clients, because before it was very much like, list something, for sale sign out, in a couple of weeks it's gone. On the buying side, okay, we need to come in at above asking price, minimal subjects, and that was, I mean, in a very small nutshell, the gist of it. But now there's a lot more thought process. It's going to be that knowledge and those business practices that are going to set you apart as a realtor. So this is the time to do it, so that when the market does turn, like it always does at some point, those guys are coming back to you along with all of their friends, because you looked after them and did your job so well in the tough market that when things are easy, they're more than confident that you can look after them to their best needs.
Yeah, and to the buyers and sellers out there, interview more than one agent and get an idea and see what they're saying, see what their perception is of this market, and put them up against another one or two agents and just see if there's a variance. If they're trying to tell you what you want to hear, which will be very blatantly obvious if you talk to more than one person, or if they're giving you the hard facts. And most people right now are getting hit with hard facts.
Yeah.
Depending when they bought, you're either still in the green or not. That's a whole other story. But most people are going to get prices thrown at them if they're being told the reality of the market under what their current expectations are.
So we can't keep telling buyers and sellers to do this and do that when we're not willing to step up ourselves. We're always looking for ways to step up our game, and so I think it's only fair that all of us step up, and that's the way that we're going to see success in this market. So again, not hammering on anyone who's done anything at all. This is just like a widespread message as what we feel that we should be doing as realtors. I think that's it for this week.
I think that's it.
That's it. Well, guys, thank you for joining us.
And happy birthday, Benjamin.